When it comes to the biggest indie games of the year, most people will think of three games in particular: Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Hollow Knight Silksong, and the highly polarizing Blue Prince. While it certainly is a critical darling, and many people love it, there's also a large amount of people that either bounced off of it, hated entirely, or committed themselves to a sunk cost fallacy to make it all the way through, losing just a tiny bit of their spiritual joy. Now, I'm not someone who experiences frustration that often, and even though I'm a known roguelite hater, the story, puzzles, and mechanics of Blue Prince were so unique that I had to put it through its paces. So here's where I stand on the game after around 25 hours of play. If for any reason you were unaware of the game, the story starts with the bequeathment of a supernatural mansion from the late Herbert Sinclair to his grandnephew Simon. This is a house with a lot of history, having entertained and housed royalty and schoolhouses and an observatory, and you're probably wondering how. Well, much like Control, the house is kind of an entity. There are only a couple of rooms that have permanent locations in the estate, while everything else is decided upon by the owner whenever they open a door. This is obviously where the randomization happens, and it needs to be emphasized that this is not a procedurally generated game like so many others. Every room you decide upon is a handcrafted room with a purpose, even if that purpose isn't always obvious at first blush. The only wrinkle is that rooms can sometimes have a gem, a key, money, or a helpful item, which I'll get into in a moment. As you explore each room, you lose a single footstep, which represents your stamina and the time of day. And when you run out of footsteps, that's pretty much the end of your day, at which point everything in the house resets and you lose whatever you have in your possession. Not exactly sure why. You have a campsite outside the house, couldn't you just put your shit there? What is Simon doing at the end of every day, eating the keys? At any rate, this is the general gameplay loop. The house has a total of 45 possible rooms, but the goal of the game is to reach the rumored Room 46 that lies just beyond, which would then transfer full ownership of the house to Simon. Perhaps it has something to do with that antechamber that is mysteriously shut on all three sides. In the first few days, you'll be mostly figuring out just how the rooms and drafting works. At each closed door, you'll be given 3 rooms to pick from, some of which have a gem cost. The basic rooms are primarily for traversal and resource gathering, while the less common rooms will grant boons, many of which synergize with other room types. You may have noticed it in the footage by now, but there are differently colored rooms as well, which has both a mechanical function and lore behind it. Since I'm sure most people would prefer to go in as blind as possible, I won't go into too many story details in this video, but I will say that the house is not the only thing fictional about this setting. The land has its own unique history, kind of like the fictional continents of the Golden Idol series. The color of each room denotes its theme and synergies, so green rooms, for example, represent gardens, greenhouses, and places with spots you can dig if you have a shovel. Purple rooms are bedrooms that give you footstep bonuses, red rooms are riskier and carry penalties, and orange rooms are hallways and corridors, some of which will have multiple exits and some of which promise unlocked doors. Yeah, I guess I should talk about that next. The deeper you go into the house, the more exits you'll find are locked and require a consumable key. When you factor in rooms that require gems and shop rooms that sell items for coins, you begin to realize how important it is to strategize resource gathering in the early part of each day. Some rooms are total dead ends, but they'll give you items in exchange, and it's good to get them out of the draft pool early so that you're not screwed over with dead ends in the north side of the house. Many days can end entirely by player fault, from not being judicious with your foot traffic, or running out of keys and being unable to open any more rooms. That's why it's so important to work out the synergies that rooms provide. Rooms like the office, for example, can spread resources across rooms you've already been to, while the nursery will give you additional footstep bonuses for every bedroom you draft. Finding these connections is pivotal to filling out a full house, and some require a bit of experimentation to find. Some days, however, don't end by player fault, and just from a case of bad luck, which is really where a lot of the contentiousness over the game comes in. Sometimes you'll only have one objective you're working towards, and though you'll always be making progress in some form, it's very difficult to make progress with the specific quest you want. The game does give you a lot to chew on at any given moment, but if you're dead set on reaching Room 46 or solving a specific puzzle, you'll probably get frustrated easily when you get multiple days of not getting the room or item you need. Now, so far this has admittedly been less a review and more an overview, but I'd like to make my stance on this pivotal issue clear. I do not experience frustration with the game myself. I've been playing the game with my roommate, and they've definitely gotten more frustrated than me watching a day end in futility. Another day with a lot of coins.
God damn it!
Can't do anything
Oh, I forgot we had a fucking die. We could have re-rolled.
Yeah, we.
Fuck! God fucking damn it! I forgot about that. So there's nowhere other place we can go.
No.
Shit! We wasted our fucking die.
We can go to the tomb and get more coins.
God.
But even in an abysmal day, there's always something new. A new room to explore, new story to uncover, a new item combination to find, or a special secret. Nothing was more exciting than finding the Rumpus Room, a little party zone that not only awards 8 coins, but has a boardwalk-style fortune teller machine that gives you clues to the game's deepest memories. You also have some weapons to help you fight the bad luck, because there actually is some permanence at play. Every so often, you'll complete a quest that will give you a permanent reward that won't reset. There are places outside of the estate that you can unlock that each stay unlocked and give you a crucial tool, whether it's easy access to computer terminals or free gems to start each day, and a side hut that has its own unique rooms to draft that will affect your entire run. The library has books you can check out with clues, and you can eventually purchase more. There may even be a third permanent room you can add to the house, though I'll leave that for you to find. So no, I wasn't frustrated. Honestly, when you get a bad result in a day, all you can really do is laugh at your rotten luck, especially because there's probably something you could have done earlier on to avoid it. My frustration only really boils with a far more active type of game, like that 12-wave combat arena in Silksong that sucked giraffe tongue. There's no real tension in Blueprints, parentheses complimentary. There's no time limit for reaching room 46, there's no combat, the music is calm and atmospheric. This is an entirely relaxed experience that makes some of people's criticisms feel, I don't know, a little silly. I mentioned that rooms had multiple purposes and that even includes dead ends. For example, there are these 2 pictures in every room, and they seem like random-ass clip art, but you'll realize after a few days that those pictures are part of a larger house-wide puzzle. Oh, you thought the chess pieces in certain rooms were just quirky decor? Think again. Every piece of information you get is a new potential tool. This does in some sense warrant the scourged genre tag of Metroid Brainia, but I again demand that we come up with a better name, please. And that kind of breadcrumb trail is where a lot of the fun in Blueprints comes for me. Writing stuff down in a notebook, taking pictures with the Steam Deck's capture button, keeping important dates in mind, finding a new memo or a letter. It feels like the harmonious marriage of walking simulators with the point-and-click adventure classic Myst. Now, is a lot of that meta stuff important to the main quest? Well, not entirely. A lot of it really comes into play with the post-game, which is where a lot of player frustration with RNG really comes to a boil. But as long as you engage with it along the way, you should be perfectly satisfied with a normal playthrough to Room 46. It adds that spice of variety to keep things interesting whether it's day 10 or day 30. And I haven't even gotten into all the game's deeper mechanics like the ability to permanently upgrade certain rooms and give them new perks. All that being said, it'd be misleading to say I had no issues with Blueprints, since I brought up Walking Simulator as a pet peeve of mine that pops up here as a general lack of interactivity. It's not that there's nothing to interact with, but there are a lot of props in these rooms that I'd like to pick up and give a look, even if they have no function. It's an assignment that Fulbright understood and met with Gone Home and Tacoma, and I don't know why so many games that want to establish an intimate connection with the environment and the player refuse to provide opportunities like this. Now, there are dozens and dozens of rooms in Blueprints, so it may simply be a matter of scope and schedule, but still, it's an area the game is a little weak in. The art direction in the game is somewhat simple but strongly realized. Some of the portraits are a little odd looking, but I actually kinda like that. In this age of inescapable Gen AI garbage, I'm happier to support actual hand-drawn art with imperfections. The performance, however, could be better, with plenty of stuttering on the Steam Deck and little in the way of graphical options to mitigate it. It also doesn't seem to have anything to do with the current size of the house either, as I'd get stutters just roaming around the outside of the estate. The UI is pretty friendly to the player, as you can always pull up the map whenever you're drafting a room, and the map screen also shows you your inventory and permanent unlocks. You can also end your day at any time and pull up a directory of all the rooms you've seen so far. It'd be nice to have some sort of section for the letters and memos you find, and they decided to keep player statistics in an in-game book in the library, so there's a little friction there, but of course, the game wants you to take notes yourself, and keeping track of everything in-game would probably defeat the point. So honestly, I don't have any real problems with the interface, and I think it's pretty good. Is Blueprints the game of the year then? Well, I haven't made that decision yet. I still have a lot of games to play. But it is pretty great, and it's the best that I've played to this point in 2025, and that includes Silksong. Even though its randomized nature would not normally appeal to me, every other aspect of it does, from the synergy to the individual puzzles to the larger mysteries and secrets. It's also a great game to play with a friend who can help remind you of clues you've found before, and keep you from making boneheaded decisions. Just make sure you have room on your real-world calendar, because it'll take you at least 20 hours to find room 46, and then there's still hours of puzzling and unlocking to come after that. But if you're into games like Tunic or Outer Wilds, and you don't mind dealing with some frustrating RNG, then I think you'll really enjoy Blueprints. I can't stress enough though that you have to be prepared to encounter multiple bad runs in a row. If that sounds like it'd get dull or annoying, then you might want to draft up a different game to spend $30 on. Hey everyone, I appreciate you watching this video. I'll be talking about the future of this channel as well as some news that I think will excite a lot of my old school fans, so definitely come back next Friday for that. In the future, I'll be reviewing Shrine's Legacy, possibly Skin Deep, Beyond Sunset, whatever floats my fancy. A special shout out to my indie darlings on Patreon, Tyler McBride, Game Trekker, Rob Ska, Thumpus, and Tony Domenico. And my lone, but certainly not lonely, channel member, Glornch. And as for the rest of you knuckleheads, until next time, you'll find me in another castle.